Hello, and welcome to the UCL SSEES Online Open Day. Thank you for your interest in the UCL School of Slavonic and East European Studies, and especially for your interest in studying the languages and cultures of Russia and Eastern Europe with us. My name is William Blacker, and I'm the Programme Coordinator for our Language and Culture degree programmes, and I'm also a lecturer in Comparative Culture of Eastern Europe here at SSEES. So what is SSEES and what do we do? Well, we are the largest centre for the study of Central and Southeastern Europe and Russia in the UK. We were founded more than 100 years ago in 1915 by Tomáš Masaryk, the future president of Czechoslovakia. And we were founded as a school to train World War I service personnel with language skills to deal with the region of East Central Europe. However, today we do much more than that, and we study the region of East Central Europe and Russia from a multi- and interdisciplinary perspective. That means that we look at it from different disciplines, but we also work across the disciplines. So we offer BA programs in economics and business, politics and sociology, languages and culture, and also history. We have more than 70 academic staff, all specialists and active researchers in their fields, and all of our staff speak at least one of the languages of our region, because we believe that language is the base of understanding any part of the world. And we cover a whole range of different topics in our research, from migration to silent cinema, from socialist architecture to cultural memory. We have around 1,000 students, and about 700 of those are undergraduates, and they come from all over the world. So why study East Central Europe and Russia and the languages of this region? Well, in SSEES we think that our region is and always has been extremely important. Think about the history of the 20th century, for example. Think about World War I, which was started in Sarajevo in southeastern Europe. Think about World War II, which was fought to a huge degree between Germany and the Soviet Union on the territories of Eastern Europe. Think about the Cold War, which defined the history of the second half of the 20th century. And think about that great and in many ways tragic experiment, communism and socialism in Eastern Europe. All of these things have defined in many ways modern European and even global history. And you can get important insights and understandings of these things by studying the region and studying its languages. But it's not only about politics and wars. There's also some fantastic culture that comes from Russia and Eastern Europe. Of course, there are the great classics like Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. But then there are also neglected classics that you might not have heard of. What about the great modernist, feminist pioneers of Ukrainian literature like Olga Kobylanska and Lesya Ukrainka, who you can see in the pictures here? What about that great Russian pioneer of silent cinema, Yevgeny Bauer, a still from one of whose films you can see in the middle here? And what about contemporary culture? What about contemporary literature? For example, Olga Tokarczuk, the Polish novelist who won the 2018 Nobel Prize. You can study these and many other fascinating writers and directors from the region if you come and study at SSEES. Eastern Europe and the SSEES region is also strategically important right now. Events across the region, from Poland and Hungary to Ukraine and Russia, mean that there's a lot of demand for expertise in the languages, culture, politics and history of this region. So it's not only fascinating to study this area, but it's also useful. Other advantages of studying in SSEES are that it's a small unit within a big university. So in this sense, you get the best of both worlds. You're 100% a UCL student, have access to everything that UCL has to offer, but you also have a cozier home within SSEES. Our programs are relatively small, so you get to know your teachers, your fellow students, and our administrative staff fairly well. And of course, we have our own events and our own student spaces within SSEES. Our languages are taught in small groups, meaning that the student-teacher ratio is very good. In many subject areas, you might have lectures of up to 100 students, but in East European languages in particular, the classes are small and you get a lot of individual attention from the teachers. Our language teachers are one of our main assets. They are fantastic. They're highly qualified, dedicated, and they teach you not just about language, but also about the culture and society of the country you're studying. Outside of your language classes, of course, SSEES offers a whole range of interesting literature and culture classes. You can study the literature of the particular country that you're interested in, but on top of that, we have a whole range of modules covering topics like cultural memory, the war cinema, Europeanness, the supernatural in literature, and many others. And you can check our BA module listings for more details. As a SSEES student, you can also take modules from other parts of UCL. So you might want to take modules from the School of European Language and Cultures, where they teach languages such as German, French, Italian, Spanish, and so on, or the Comparative Literature programme. And if you want to go outside of culture and literature, SSEES is also a great place for that. As I mentioned before, we're an area studies school, and we study all aspects of Eastern Europe and Russia, from politics and economy to history and culture. So if you have space for an optional module, and as long as it's relevant, you can take a module from a different discipline. East European languages are also in demand. When you graduate with one of our languages, which are less commonly taught languages, you will immediately have something that makes your CV stand out. So while we have the numbers of graduates in the bigger languages like French or Spanish quite large, those who can boast a good knowledge of Polish or Ukrainian or Hungarian are few and far between, and yet there are plenty of jobs around that look for knowledge of these languages. And finally, of course, learning an East European language is itself just fascinating and worthwhile in and of itself. It'll give you a completely new perspective on Europe, on the world, and open up a whole new culture that you might otherwise not have encountered. So back to SSEES and what we do here. I'll tell you about what we do in the classroom in a moment, but it's worth remembering that university is about more than what happens just in the classroom. We have a whole range of extracurricular events at SSEES, often with high-profile speakers from across our region. So recent guests include the Russian novelist Boris Akunin, Maria Alyokhina, a member of the famous Russian protest punk group Pussy Riot. We also had Sean Walker, the Guardian journalist, and Anne Applebaum, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and historian. Recent topics that we've covered include the BBC McMafia series, so we explored transnational crime and the links between Russia and London. We also had events on Brexit from an East European perspective, Ukrainian literature and the war in the Donbass region of Ukraine. We had a conference on the legacy of the 1989 revolutions in politics and society and culture. And we also had an event looking at the centenary of women's voting rights in Poland. As well as that, we have SSEES social events, and we also have a SSEES student society, which organises its own events. And on top of all that, there's everything else that's happening in UCL, the student societies and various other kinds of events and activities. So, now some more detail about the BA degrees that we offer. We offer language degrees in Bulgarian, Czech, Finnish, Hungarian, Polish, Romanian, Russian, Serbian and Croatian, which we teach together, and Ukrainian. You can study 2 of these, or you can combine one of these with the languages taught at the UCL School of European Languages, Cultures and Societies. All of our languages can be studied from beginner's level, and you can also take them as elective modules as part of other degrees. So if your degree is just in Russian, you can still take, for example, Finnish as one of your optional modules. UCL has a huge range of different languages to study, and we have more than 240 combinations of languages available. If you want to study Russian with us, then you will most likely take our Russian Studies BA. And on the Russian Studies BA, we offer 3 tracks in culture, politics and history. So you make the choice whether you want to focus more on culture, on politics or history, and the degree programme is tailored towards your choice. In addition, we have a BA in Russian and history, where you take equal numbers of modules from the Russian side and the history side. And we also have Russian with an East European language. This is different to the Joint Honours Languages degrees, where you do an equal number of modules from each language. And here you can take Russian as your main language and focus on another East European language as a kind of minor language within the degree. Finally, one thing to add is that we have one language which we teach not at degree level, but which can be taken as an optional module in any of our other degrees, and that is Slovene. As I said before, generally we have small class sizes and we have a mixture of lectures and seminars. And usually small groups mean a lot of possibilities for discussion and talking with the teacher and with each other. As well as the usual lectures and seminars, we have things like film screenings, and of course your language practice classes will be taught in various different ways depending on which language skill you are focusing on. We normally have around 10 to 12 hours of contact time per week, and we expect around about 20 hours of self-study from our students. Assessment happens in a mixture of exams, coursework essays, but also things like group work and presentations, depending on the different kinds of assessment in different modules. You also have, during your studies, access to dedicated resources, which includes the wonderful SSEES library, which is one of the best in the world for studying Russia and Eastern Europe, but also computer-aided language learning facilities and multimedia resources. On our degrees, you will take compulsory classes in comprehension and use of language, as well as courses in literature, culture, cinema, history and politics of the region according to your choice. We have a wide range of options covering everything from poetry to politics, and you can find details on the UCL SSEES website. In your third year, you spend the year abroad in the country in which the language you're studying is spoken at one of our partner universities. If you study Russian from beginner's level, after year 1, you can spend 4 weeks on a special summer program in Kazan in order to practice your language skills. And students taking the Russian and History BA will take half of their modules from the history side and half from the Russian side. On the history side, this includes access to modules run by the UCL History Department. The year abroad is undoubtedly one of the highlights of our BA degrees, and all of our students spend a year in the country of their chosen language, and if you're studying 2 languages, you split that year between the 2 countries. We have agreements with a whole range of partner institutions across the region, from Prague to Belgrade, and students will usually spend the year taking classes at the partner institutions in language, culture, and the expertise of the various different departments involved. In Russia, we have a range of different options too. So we have the Higher School of Economics in St. Petersburg, Moscow Language Link, and universities in the cities of Yaroslavl and Kazan. And we also work with a dedicated student exchange organization which specializes in student exchanges in Russia and works with a number of different UK universities. So, what do you do after you finish your degree? Well, during your degree, UCL Careers will provide you with lots of advice and support with job searches, careers information, networking events, CV writing and interview skills, as well as themed weeks across sectors. So for students interested in different areas of potential employment, there are specialised sessions, specialised weeks dedicated to different areas of expertise. A language degree really provides you with a whole wealth of transferable skills, and our graduates go into a whole range of different areas after they've graduated, as well as, of course, going on to further study at master's or PhD level. And here you can see some of the areas into which our students have gone in recent years, and some of the most popular areas include accounting and finance, publishing, journalism and translation, policy and government, security and intelligence, and health and social care. And in SSEES, on top of the UCL careers events, we also have our own SSEES events, which feature, for example, employer evenings with organisations like the Chatham House think tank, or with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, or the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So, if you're thinking of applying to us, what are we looking for? Our entry requirements vary according to the degree programme that you apply for, and you should check the latest information in the UCL prospectus, but usually we're looking at 2 A's and a B, or an A and 2 B's at A level. You can start, as I've already said, the languages at beginner's level, so you don't necessarily have to have an A level in the languages you want to study. In your application, we're looking for evidence of enthusiasm for, but also some reading around the languages and culture that you want to study, and you can demonstrate this in your personal statement. We're also interested in the idea of global citizenship and making our students into global citizens, so we're looking for applicants who are curious about the world around them and the role that they can play in that world. We don't have interviews and we assess our applications on the UCAS form only. If you'd like to find out more, you can email ugadmissions@sees.ucl.ac.uk. You can follow us on social media, or you can come to a SSEES event, whether in person or online. And if you apply and are accepted, look forward to further events later on. I hope you found this presentation interesting, and I hope to see you at SSEES in the near future.